Hey YouTube, it's Eric. I was going to be doing a stream with George Widger tonight, but George is unable to make it. I'm in contact with him though, and you guys should expect a joint stream with me and George sometime later this week. The last stream me and George did together on September 16th was censored off of YouTube, off this YouTube channel. It's now you can now see it on Odyssey and on my channel Eric777 number 2, my backup channel. I recommend you guys check that out. So in the next stream, me and George are going to do, just expect some code words because we're going to have to get around the censorship Gestapo. Hey Pedro, how's it going? Good evening. But just in that stream, that censored stream I did with George, the way we started off the stream by showing footage of Jesuit Pope Francis's trip to the United States Congress in September 2015, where he was given a bipartisan standing ovation. Bipartisan. Every single Democrat and every single Republican in the House chamber was on their feet applauding the Pope. And I got a book here. I recommend you guys check out this book. This is from a Stanford University, it was published by Stanford scholar here, Manilo Graziano. In Rome We Trust: The Rise of Catholics in American Political Life. The author here on page 172 comments on that grand reception that Pope Francis received. Again, that was a massive standing ovation. It's some dude, a commenter, said that it reminded him of a North Korean political, theater show. You get some North Korean communist China vibes watching that video, no doubt. Every single Republican and Democrat on their feet saluting the Antichrist Pope Francis I, Jesuit priest Pope Francis I, and Joe Biden, of course, and Roman Catholic Jesuit honorary degrees. All of his sons went to Jesuit schools. Joe Biden is as close to the Catholic Church as one could get, and the Speaker of the House, Republican John Boehner, Jesuit-trained Knight of Columbus, were behind Pope Francis while he was giving his speech, and John Boehner was comically tearing up during the whole speech. So this is gonna be a quick 20-minute video or so, but in this video I'm gonna be going into some of the very intriguing connections that speakers at the Vatican Healthcare Conference in 2021. And you'll see descendants of the American political dynasties were here. So the Bush crime family was represented, the Clinton crime family was represented at the Vatican Health Conference. Of course, Chelsea Clinton, I have the video of her actually speaking at the event at the Vatican Health Conference on my YouTube channel, where Chelsea Clinton advocates for more strict censorship of, quote, anti-vaxxers off of social media. And actually, at the end of the video, I'm going to cover it. Paul Joseph Watson from Infowars, actually on his website, Summit News, just published an article yesterday. It's titled "Pope Demands Silicon Valley, quote, in the name of God, censor, quote, hate speech and conspiracy theories." So the Pope is now asking big tech to censor, quote, hate speech and conspiracy theories off the internet. And of course, Jesuit Pope Francis came out 2 weeks ago and said that if you're criticizing him, you're working for the devil. We read here in Rome We Trust, page 172. Rather than measured by the numbers, whose meaning has been analyzed in detail in this book, the new vitality of the Church, the Catholic Church, can be measured by the attention, respect, admiration, and sometimes even flattery with which its voice is heard and its representatives are received. Think about the naval gunboat salutes that were given to Pope Benedict XVI and Jesuit Pope Francis by the United States Navy. I did a whole video on the, quote, Protestant British Navy giving a naval gunboat salute to King George. British King George in 1934. That being the Protestant British Navy in air quotes. We see wherever the Pope goes, he is greeted simultaneously as a head of state, a prophet, a tutelary, a deity, and a rock star. It actually reminds me of the New York Times in 2015. The current head of the New York Times, let me Google the guy's name. Mark Thompson, Jesuit trained at Stonyhurst. guy's name here. Yeah, Mark Thompson, current CEO of the New York Times, Jesuit Stonyhurst College. When Jesuit Pope Francis came to America in 2015, the New York Times actually ran a column calling Pope Francis a rock star. And it's interesting, that's what the author's pointing out here. The Pope is perceived as a rock star in the media whenever he comes to the U.S. We see here that wherever the Pope goes, he is greeted simultaneously as a head of state, a prophet, a tutelary, a deity. But the Pope claims that he is God himself. That's Catholic doctrine. The Pope is said to be able to turn square things into round things. Again, because only a God would have that power. But the Pope is said to have that power. He speaks ex cathedra in the place of God. But again, the Vicar of Christ. Again, he is greeted as a deity and a rock star with a distinction and regard that no other religious leader and no other political leader can seriously hope to match. And it's very interesting too that, just another fun fact on the side, the city of Los Angeles in California, Los Angeles named after the Virgin Mary, that the city name, of course, but the LAPD, the biggest police protection that the LAPD has ever given in the history of the department was to when Pope John Paul II came to Los Angeles in 1987. And it's on their website. I have that documented on Reddit's Jesuit World Order, my subreddit page there. But again, that's the biggest police protection that the LAPD has ever given in the history of the department, was given to the Pope John Paul II. Bigger protection than was even given to the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, when he came to LA. We see here, so then the author here quotes an anonymous cardinal, and again, the anonymous cardinal is quoted by saying, quote, "We unquestionably exercise an influence on the world stage whenever the opportunity arises," end quote, confessed an anonymous cardinal in 2007. He continued, quote, "We are the only religious power to have such an ability. We are so accustomed to it that we fail to remember to what degree our position is exceptional." And then the author continues here, the solemnity with which Pope Francis was received in the United States in September 2015. And again, that solemnity was a massive bipartisan standing ovation, attests to the growth of this influence. That means the influence of the Roman Catholic Church in American political life. But now here we're going to go into some of the interesting names on the Vatican Health Conference, or attendees at the Vatican Health Conference. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to share my audio. I also found the last video I put up, to start off though, the last video I put up on my channel was of the CEO of Moderna, Jesuit-educated Stefan Bancel, receiving a Pontifical Hero Award from the Vatican. But actually, I have audio here of Stefan Bancel talking about his Jesuit education. Again, this is being the current CEO of Moderna. The other co-founder of Moderna, current chairman Noubar Afeyan, was educated by the Jesuits at Loyola High School in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So listen to this very interesting dialogue here, though. Yes, and this is the CEO of Moderna on the left, speaking with an associate of Jesuit alumni in France, like the Jesuit Alumni Association.
Thank you very much. When we first started this interview, you said that you had a good remembrance of your years in France and at the Jesuits. Could you elaborate a little bit?
You remember he has good fond memories of his time with the Jesuits, the current CEO of Moderna. So now he's going to elaborate, Stefan Bancel. I'm going to show you, of course, Stefan Bancel was an attendee at the 2021 Vatican Healthcare Conference, as was the CEO of Pfizer, the CEO of Merck, the CEO of Johnson & Johnson. All of the big health CEOs, big pharma cartel, were represented at the Vatican Healthcare Conference.
On this, tell us, because you were at the Jesuits in Provence, in Marseille, first in your high school years, and then you moved to Versailles with Ginette for your prep school years. How would you rate the impact it has had on your life and your way to be?
Yeah, so I mean, the current CEO is double Jesuit educated.
The fantastic entrepreneur that you are now.
Thanks for the kind words. The impact that being with Jesuit has had has been very profound. I mean, I actually started even before high school in middle school. So when I was 12 years old,
it's been very profound, the influence of the Jesuits on Stéphane Bancel, current CEO of Moderna.
Is when I entered the Jesuit in Cesium. And the piece that has been remarkable for me is, how the Jesuits live their faith, which is in action, is in doing, is in serving. Some of them live their faith, through prayer and through introspection. What I've always really admired and really resonated with me and my personality is serving in action. And I saw it every day,
You're talking about now how much he admires the Jesuits.
At École Provence, even at Ginette. But at Provence, I remember, the father Jesuits, were always engaged with the community, with people with problems, with people that were poor.
Always subvert communities, Jesuit doublespeak. Again, when Jesuits talk about freedom, they mean tyranny. That's Jesuit doublespeak.
And they will literally, get in the car and go and do work and help. And that's this action of serving has virtually had a big impact on me.
Serving the Pope. That's why he was given, Moderna CEO was given the Pontifical Hero Award. Serving the Pope as his Grand Inquisitor in this medical inquisition. COVID-19, the CV-19 pandemic.
People ask me, when the virus appeared in December 2019, did you spend
the virus funded by lay Jesuit Tony Fauci, SJ?
A lot of time thinking about doing a vaccine or not, and I told them no, I didn't spend even 1 minute thinking about it. I thought technology should be able to work. This virus that was appearing in China was going to hurt people, and so we started chasing and running after it. And this mindset of serving is really, really key to who I am, and I really owe it to the Jesuits.
I really owe it to the Jesuits. Did you catch that last part? We play that there.
It was going to hurt people, and so we started chasing and running after it. And this mindset of serving is really, really key to who I am, and I really owe it to the Jesuits.
No.
Okay, so we got a servant of the Pope right here, the Moderna CEO. And again, if you look at the dignitaries and speakers at the Vatican Healthcare Conference, here's the page here. Who's the leader of the conference? Of course, the head mafia don, the quote Holy Father Pope Francis. Private virtual audience for participants with the quote Holy Father Pope Francis. You see the leader. Then you got the Cardinal Secretary of State, the Jesuit Pope was going to be going to the climate conference COP26 coming up, but his Secretary of State will now be going for him. The Secretary of State also recently attended the Bilderberg conference for the Pope. And of course, a Jesuit, Joseph Rettinger, a lay Jesuit, and a Knight of Malta, Prince Bernhard, who is also a Nazi, were the principal founders of the Bilderberg group. Just another cog in the Roman wheel of control, the Roman rota wheel. Okay, we see here, you see Stéphane Bancel. Actually, you see here another one of the lead dignitaries was the member of the Knights of Malta, Bailiff Grand Cross of Honor and Devotion and Obedience of the Sovereign Order of Malta, Dominique Prince de la Foucauld Montbel. You see here the hosts. Here you got Cardinal Gianfranceschi Ravazzi, Robin L. Smith, a papal knight. She's got like 3 or 4 papal knighthoods. She's the president and chairman of the Curia Foundation, which was heavily associated with this event. Monsignor Tomaz Trafny, and you got Ronaldo Paletti, president of Science and Faith Foundation and president Foundation for Heritage and Cultural and Artistic Activities of the Church. So there you got your Vatican representatives as the host, but here are the speakers, and this is where it gets very interesting. So we're going to see the Moderna CEO here, Stéphane Bancel, and we see here his Jesuit upbringing, as I just showed you, had a profound impact on him, as he said with his own words. But going into some of the American political dynasties, we have Jonathan Bush Jr., who is the cousin of U.S. President George W. Bush, president on the day who was the puppet president at the time of the 9/11 treason, the false flag attack mastered by the Jesuits in Rome. He had all the top leadership at the time being openly Roman Catholic and Jesuit trained, being the CIA director, George Tenet being trained at Georgetown, the deputy CIA director, John Brennan, being trained at Fordham, the governor of New York at the time, George Pataki, being a Roman Catholic, the head of the NYPD, Bernard Kerik, being a Roman Catholic, the mayor of New York at the time, Rudy Giuliani, being a devout Roman Catholic. Again, it was an inquisition, and George Bush, just 5 days after the quote 9/11 attack, said this war on terrorism is a crusade. George W. Bush in 2008 said he saw God in the eyes of Pope Benedict XVI. I have that video on my channel. Total puppet. All you got to do also is read the article, The Catholic Wind in the White House by the Washington Post. That's on my website. You see how George Bush was a total fraud. Rick Santorum, he was a former senator who actually ran for president a couple times in the Republican Party. Rick Santorum, he's a Knight of Columbus and Opus Dei. Devout Catholic, Rick Santorum. Rick Santorum said that George Bush was more Catholic than John F. Kennedy. Wow, how sinister is that when I've proven without a shadow of a doubt that the Roman Catholic Church was behind John F. Kennedy's murder. A huge part of that was Kennedy's refusal to finance the Roman Catholic Church with federal taxpayer dollars. He also, Kennedy wanted to limit the Catholic control, the Catholics in Action, CIA's ability to perform covert operations around the world. Kennedy also took out the devout Roman Catholic dictator Ngo Dinh Diem in South Vietnam, which outraged the Vatican. There's many, I could go into hours about the reasons for Kennedy's death and how he was rebelling against the church. John F. Kennedy even said himself that I've documented that if they can get me, they could even get me in church, referring to the Roman Catholic Church. That's a quote from John F. Kennedy himself. The point being, though, that Rick Santorum said Bush was more Catholic than Kennedy. I mean, that George Bush was willing to be a total fraud and be a soulless puppet of the Pope when John F. Kennedy wasn't. John F. Kennedy had a backbone. Beside John Kennedy was a liberal Roman Catholic. Kennedy was even a Knight of Columbus himself, but regardless of that, he resisted the Pope. You see here Jonathan Bush Jr., cousin of George Bush, at the Vatican Health Conference. The Bush crime family here represented. And then you had the former Governor Jeb is a fourth-degree Knight of Columbus, of course. Here, Jonathan Bush Jr. is the executive chairman of Firefly Health, a pioneer in real-time direct primary care, quote unquote. So you see the Bush crime family represented, and of course the Clinton crime family is, of course, going to be represented here. Chelsea Clinton. I have the video of Chelsea Clinton speaking at this event where she calls for more censorship of anti-vaxxers on social media. And here's the article that Paul Joseph Watson just did on Summit News, where I had that up here. Here's here the Eccles, a relative of Mariner Eccles, the Federal Reserve chairman, who the Federal Reserve headquarter building is named after, was at the Vatican Health Conference. That's why I got this article up here. Okay, here's the article here from Paul Joseph Watson. And he also did a video on this. It's nice to see this kind of going mainstream because I know he's got over like 1 million followers on YouTube. You see here, Pope demands Silicon Valley, quote, in the name of God, censor hate speech and conspiracy theories. Pope Francis thinks empowering giant corporations to silence free speech is godly. Of course, Jesuitism to a T. To a T. Pope Francis invoked God in an effort to suppress Silicon Valley giants into censoring more content, including, quote, hate speech and conspiracy theories. Yes, really, the Pope made the remarks during a world meeting of popular movements, a shadowy organization created to promote Jesuit social justice. Of course, the Jesuit priest Luigi Tapparelli created the term social justice. It's Jesuit social justice, not social justice. To fight racism with the help of religious leaders. Here's a quote from Pope Francis. In the name of God, I ask the technology giants to stop exploiting human weakness, people's vulnerability for the sake of profits without caring about the spread of hate speech, grooming, fake news, conspiracy theories, and political manipulation, he stated. And Watson points out, this is no surprise given that his Jesuit Pope Francis's previous stance on free speech in response to the slaughter of the Charlie Hebdo cartoonists. That was that incident where Prophet Muhammad was depicted badly in a cartoon and people were killed by radical Muslims protesting that. Pope Francis sided with the terrorists who murdered the innocent people in cold blood. People who drew a cartoon and supported a cartoon. And of course, here Pope Francis recently said his critics are performing the work of the devil. And here Paul Joseph Watson covered that on his YouTube channel there, which was nice to see. He's here. Chelsea Clinton from the Clinton crime family is here, of course. I thought this was interesting. I watched the Jesuit theater movie, The Love Guru, recently, and Deepak Chopra is like a big part of that movie. Mike Myers' character, the Love Guru, is saying, I'm trying to become the next Deepak Chopra. You see, Deepak Chopra, spiritual guru, is a total fraud. He's a Vatican puppet. He's attending the Vatican healthcare conference. Francis Collins, he recently stepped down, the director of the National Institutes of Health. He's on the Pontifical Academy of Sciences. He was saying a couple months ago that you still got to wear a mask inside your house when you're around your kids. Of course, he's at the Vatican Healthcare Conference. All these frauds are. Here, Eccles, he's from the Federal Reserve Dynasty. Spencer P. Eccles, co-founder and managing partner of the Synoger Group. Of course, Chelsea Clinton is currently managing the Criminal Clinton Foundation. Here's Spencer Eccles, co-founder, managing partner of the Synoger Group. This guy's also involved with the Mormon Church, interestingly. He was a Jesuit-controlled Mormon church. A Jesuit priest, Pierre de Schmet, who was actually very, very involved with the creation of Mormonism itself. You can read those quotes even in Schmet's memoirs, which are on my archive.org account. You see here, Mr. Eccles was named to a 3-year post as mission president for the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Again, he's currently the founder of the Synoger Group. And again, he went to Mormon Brigham Young University. This guy's a big, one of Utah's largest private philanthropic foundation. He has the George S. and Dolores Eccles Foundation. I know there was an Eccles that was Jesuit. There's a Jesuit-educated Eccles in this family that worked for Farmers Insurance. Also, Farmers Insurance was founded by Jesuit-educated Ed Levy. I know it's way down on my YouTube community page. Yeah, George S. Eccles. Actually, I know one of these Eccles was on the board of Farmers Insurance. So that for a fact. And actually, it's way down on my community page on YouTube, but I actually found out that I found a little ad from the Georgetown magazine where Farmers Insurance was talking about how Georgetown grads will get lower auto insurance rates than everyone else. Jesuit Georgetown grads. And there's this Eccles, you see the name Eccles here on the board there. Doubtlessly the same Eccles family. Because he'd be Eccles during, this the CV-19 pandemic here. The Eccles family just donated the University University of Utah's medical school $110 million. This guy from the University of Toronto, I thought this was interesting here. You got the current director of the heart. Let me see here. Vice Chair of Research and Professor of Medicine, Department of Medicine, University of Toronto. He's the director of the Heart and Stroke Richard Lewis Center of Excellence. Michael Farku, MD. He's at the Vatican Healthcare Conference here. Very interesting. The University of Toronto is totally Jesuit. All these big secular schools are controlled by the Vatican. Oh, look at this. Dr. Farku has received the gold medal from John Paul II Hospital in Krakow, Poland. Would you look at that? Okay, so back to the speakers here. And of course, Anthony Fauci. Jesuit Anthony Fauci, current director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. He started off this whole Vatican Health Conference. Paul Farmer, the head of Harvard Medical Schools. We talked about Paul Farmer on his previous stream with George. Current chair, Department of Global Health and Social Medicine, Harvard Med School. Paul Farmer received the Jesuit Sword of Loyola from Jesuit Loyola University in Chicago, and he speaks about how he's a fan of liberation theology, and he's a fan of Pope Francis. Here's the Jesuit puppet master of this conference, Jesuit Reverend Kevin Fitzgerald, S.J., affiliated with Jesuit Creighton University, professor and chair of the Department of Medical Humanities at Jesuit Creighton. Jesuit Kevin Fitzgerald, S.J. See here, he's got 2 PhDs, one in molecular genetics and one in bioethics from Georgetown. He's a founding member of Do No Harm, a member of the Ethics Committee for the March of Dimes, and a member of the Genetic Alliance IRB. In addition, he currently chairs the Ethics Advisory Council for the Geisinger Health System MyCode Biobank project. That's not that. Wow, some Big Brother police state health biometric tracking for you, which includes a return of results process for exome sequencing of project participants. In addition, Jesuit Father Fitzgerald has been a corresponding member of the Pontifical Academy for Life since 2005 and a consultor to the Pontifical Council for Culture since 2014. You see here, these American political elites are connected to this. You have the Bush family, the Eccles family, the Clinton family. You hear David Feinberg, Google's kind of vice president, head of Google Health. He's here. I mentioned all the CEOs. Here's another health CEO, Robert C. Garrett, CEO of Hackensack Meridian Health. All sorts of health CEOs are here at this conference, like all sorts. Not making it up. You can look at it here. He's a research partner at Jesuit Georgetown Lombardi Comprehensive Cancer Center. Wow. There you go. All these guys are connected to the Vatican that are attending here. Of course, Sanjay Gupta was here. Sanjay Gupta, it's kind of funny. He went on Joe Rogan's podcast like 3 days ago and got totally owned. He admitted that CNN was lying about Rogan taking ivermectin, or that ivermectin being a horse dewormer. It's like calling aspirin a dog drug because they make a dog version of aspirin. You don't say you're taking dog pills when you take an aspirin if you're feeling sick. Of course, aspirin is connected to Bayer, which is connected to IG Farben's and Jesuits' Nazi biochemical cartel during World War II. He's another health CEO here, Henry G., President CEO of Sorrento Therapeutics. Actually, here's another, the Kennedy family. Kerry Kennedy. Here's another American political dynasty here, the Kennedys. And of course, the Jesuits have taken complete control of the Kennedy family since the assassination. They assassinated John F. Kennedy Jr. because John F. Kennedy Jr. was the only one from this family, in my opinion, that really wanted to get to the bottom of John F. Kennedy's murder. And JFK Jr. had a convenient helicopter crash, very convenient for the Jesuits indeed. So you're Kerry Kennedy, Jesuit or graduate of Jesuit Boston College Law School. She's current president of the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights. Okay, that's the group there. Of course, I'm going to put this video on my channel. Richard Nixon on CNN Crossfire. U.S. President Richard Nixon said on live TV that Robert F. Kennedy reminded him of a 16th century Jesuit priest. Oh, she wrote a New York Times bestseller called Being Catholic Now. Wow, there you go. Wow. Well, she wrote a book, quote, Speak Truth to Power. Wow. Wow. What baloney that is. Okay, but we continue here. I think there was a Libby. I'm not sure if this guy's related to Scooter Libby, Dick Cheney's attorney, but here you got Peter Libby here. Interesting connection, possible connection there to Scooter Libby. I'm not sure. Could just have the same last name. Here's I think this was a Jordanian princess. You see here. Her Royal Highness Princess Dina Murd. I gotta confirm. If it is Jordanian, that's very interesting because the Jordanian royal family is total control. Yeah, Jordanian. There you go. The Jordanian royal family is totally controlled by the Vatican. Yes, her spouse is Prince Murad bin Rad, is the second son of Prince Rad bin Zed, head of the royal house of Iraq and Syria. But the current king, of course, of Jordan. So here you got a Jordanian princess at the Vatican Health Conference. Anyway, she's a leading global advocate for cancer control and non-communicable diseases. Where's he go? King Abdullah II of Jordan. Where did he go to school? Huh. I wonder if the Jesuits had something to do with his upbringing. Let's see here. Early life. Oh, he got the prince attended Edmund A. Walsh School of Foreign Service at Jesuit Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., the District of Catholics. In 1987, undertaking advanced study and research in international affairs. There you go. I know that the heir apparent to the Jordanian throne is also educated at Jesuit Georgetown, Crown Prince Hussein. You see here, graduated from Jesuit Georgetown University. They got the kingdom under lock. You bet that. There you got princesses attending the Vatican Health Conference here. Princess Dina Murd. Wow. Absolutely, Pedro. The Inquisition has not stopped. It just morphed and updated. Absolutely. 100%. That's a fact. Yeah, so I recommend you go through all of these names. But you see here, so you got the Kennedy dynasty here. Of course, Ted Kennedy was given 3 Jesuit honorary degrees after the John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy murders because he kept quiet and he became an alcoholic. Obviously because he knew the truth and it ate at his conscience. But the Jesuits gave him honorary degrees because he was told to shut up and not make a fuss, which he did. He did shut up and didn't make a fuss. I mean, Ted Kennedy. You can look it up. He got honorary degrees from Boston College, I think Holy Cross, and another Jesuit school after the Kennedy assassination. But the Kennedy dynasty is here. They're now fully controlled. The Bush dynasty was represented here. Jonathan Bush Jr., you have Kerry Kennedy. You have Chelsea Clinton was here. Spencer Eccles being the cousin of Mariner Eccles, the chairman of the Federal Reserve Bank. And you have the Eccles building being the headquarters of the Federal Reserve. Of course, the Federal Reserve is modeled off of the Catholic Church. That was admitted by Richard Siren, who is a top executive at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. And I have that quotation on my website. That comes from William Greider's book, The Secrets of the Temple, How the Federal Reserve Controls the Country. And interesting too, if you look up all these ecumenical leaders, so you see here you got the chair of the British Board of Scholars and Imams, Sheikh Asim Yusuf. You have all these different leaders. You have Jewish leaders here, Muslim leaders, Mormon leaders, because the Vatican controls all the other world religions. That's a fact. Through the ecumenism and the ecumenical movement, they've achieved that control. And this family here is just a political connected family. The Eschenbachs. You have Andrew C. von Eschenbach. He was the former commissioner of the U.S. FDA, Food and Drug Administration, and 12th director of the National Cancer Institute. He was educated at 2 Jesuit schools, I believe. Jesuit St. Joseph's University and Jesuit Georgetown. Of course, he's at the Vatican Healthcare Conference, and his brother is here also, Warren J. von Eschenbach. And he's a current associate vice president, assistant provost, and associate teaching professor at Roman Catholic University of Notre Dame. Would you look at that? Before his current job at Notre Dame, he worked for the state of Texas on higher education policies and finance. So the American political elite are here. And of course, I mentioned all the CEOs are here. You type in CEO 18, come up. Actually, Bloomberg. I forgot about Bloomberg. Good thing I mention see that here. Emma Bloomberg. This is Mike Bloomberg's daughter. Founder and CEO of Mermation. Emma Bloomberg, founder CEO of Mermation, a political organization that supports and partners in their efforts to plan and execute successful data-driven community organizing, advocacy, and electoral campaigns so that we can transform, quote, the politics of education. Sits on the board of the Bloomberg Family Foundation. Of course, Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire Jew, former mayor of New York, who attends every single Roman Catholic Al Smith dinner, every single one. Michael Bloomberg epitomizes what a papal court Jew is. Total puppet of the Pope, Michael Bloomberg. And here is his daughter, a speaker, a dignitary and speaker at the Vatican Health Conference. And in the Vatican Health Conference, this happened at the exact same time that Stefan Bonsell, the CEO of Moderna, made those comments about how much his Jesuit education has had an impact on him. That was also right around the same time of this conference, first week of May 2021. Is here Alberto Brula, chairman CEO of Pfizer, is here. There's the Bush crime family represented, Jonathan Bush. So you got the Bloomberg crime family here and the Bush crime family, and you got the Clinton crime family, the Eccles crime family, the Kennedy crime family. Wow. The American political elite. Here, Jonathan Crowley, chairman of the board, CEO of Amicus Therapeutics. Judy Faulkner, founder, CEO of Epic. Rebecca G., CEO, LSU. That's Louisiana State University Healthcare Services, former secretary of the Louisiana Department of Health. Lori Gilmshire, president and CEO of Dana-Farber Cancer Institute. Robert Hariri, MD, PhD. I wonder if this guy is related to the Jesuit-educated former president of Lebanon who has the same last name. I'll have to do more research into that. That would be pretty interesting. That being Saad Hariri, former president of Lebanon. Bob Hariri, he's a surgeon, biomedical scientist, a serial entrepreneur. I bring up this connection though because this former president of Lebanon has this guy Saad Hariri. This guy's given millions and millions of dollars to Jesuit Georgetown University. Millions and millions and millions of dollars. Which you're going through more of the CEOs. Chairman, president, CEO of Sorrento Therapeutics, founder and CEO of 100 Plus, Ryan Howard. Henry G. is the president and chairman, president, and CEO of Sorrento Therapeutics. Henry G. Aaron J. Kowalski, president and CEO of JDRF International. William M. Lee, president and medical director and CEO of the Angiogenesis Foundation. He was at the Vatican Health Conference. Shelley Lyford, president and CEO of the Gary and Mary West Foundation. Gary Mendel, founder, CEO of Shatterproof. Maria Millen, president and CEO of California Institute of Regenerative Medicine. Emmanuel Manny Onmi, president and CEO of Samaritan Feet International. Roy Schoenberg, president and CEO of Amwell. And here, Jarrell Shelton, chairman, president, and CEO of Cryoport. Look at that. Actually, Johns Hopkins University is represented here. How interesting, because that's where Event 201 took place. The quote pandemic simulation event right before this whole CV-19 pandemic kicked off. You got a Bloomberg Distinguished Professor. You got Emma Bloomberg here. Bloomberg Distinguished Professor of Oncology and Epidemiology, Johns Hopkins University, Otis W. Brawley. Here's another Johns Hopkins connection. Christian Tomasetti, Associate Professor of Oncology and Biostatistics, Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. There you go. But I think I'm going to call it this, guys. I have Sinclair Oil. Absolutely, that Sinclair Oil. The Sinclair, what was the guy's first name? I think it was Robert Sinclair. Oh, Harry Ford Sinclair. He was a Roman Catholic. A devout Roman Catholic. Yeah, here he's here. Harry Ford Sinclair, the Sinclair oil baron, devout Roman Catholic. Absolutely. The higher you go up, the filthier it is. Good point. U.S. is like a modern day Coliseum, absolutely a Roman Coliseum. Think about all of the stadiums all over the U.S. You know, John Lennon famously said, actually, this will be a good way to stop the video. Again, to expect, I'm going to be doing a stream with George probably later this week. John Lennon said that America is like the new Roman Empire. Here's a quote by John Lennon. This is from John Lennon. If I've lived in Roman times, I'd had lived in Rome. Where else? Today, America is the Roman Empire. In New York is Rome itself. Look at that. Of course, if you look at the list of speakers here, the FDA, there's like 4 or 5 FDA representatives at this conference, you know, CDC representatives. You know, the CDC was founded by a Jesuit trained Joseph Walter Moonton back in the 1940s. You know, it truly is Romerica. And you see that here, all these American political elite at this Vatican Health Conference that took place in May 2021. But I think that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love. Actually, just I see a touch saying, why would the Jesuit order do this? The Vatican wants society to be arranged as it was back in the 11th and 12th centuries, where the Roman Catholic Church was omnipotent and powerful. The church, in collaboration with the big landowners, aristocrats at the time, or the nobility, as it is today, as you see here with conferences like this, the Vatican. And if you look up the quote Council for Inclusive Capitalism, for instance, you see the Vatican is very, very close with the 1% elite. And again, during the CV-19 pandemic, this has been the biggest transfer of wealth in the history. The Vatican wants us to go back to the way things were in the 12th century and the Dark Ages, where, you know, all of the quote basic democratic rights today that lots of people take for granted, like freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of association, et cetera, like all that will be taken away very soon, because we are entering a new dark age. But I think that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love, and I'll keep it saucy, and I'll catch you on the next video.